All right, welcome class to our week 12 presentation. What I want to do this week is kind of go over the multimedia project and what is expected, and I have an example which you guys can see on the screen right now, and basically just kind of look over expectations. So I have the multimedia project essay for description here, which you guys have already had access to. One of the things that I neglected to share with you is the rubric, so I'm going to be uploading that this week and making sure that you have access to it. But this is how I'm going to grade it. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was understood what the expectations were. Now, of course, what you are doing for the multimedia project is creating a presentation of background information. Now, you may not know a whole lot about the play quite yet. You're reading Act 1. You've read a little bit at the beginning to kind of get to know what's going on with the play. But this is okay. You don't have to know the whole play to look up background information. And the background information is meant to give us a further depth of understanding of the play itself by looking at these details and how it fits. So with the multimedia project this week, and as you are continuing forward with it, I want you to keep in mind that you are giving us research rather than necessarily summarizing the entire play. We do want to make connections though. So let's look at the expectations. We're going to look at the A section because that's what we all want to get, right? So you're going to demonstrate a thorough and insightful understanding of your topic. So whichever topic that you choose, you remember these are the choices up here. You can look at Ishu the Trickster, death as a classic motif, African American role in baseball, blues music, trains as symbols, and African American writing and music, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania between 1957 and 1965. And if you had another choice you wanted to run by me, you're always welcome to do that as well. But you need to demonstrate a thorough understanding of that topic, and I want you to interpret it. So I want you to show how that topic connects to the play in some way or to the author in some way, which we went over the author a bit last week, and of course you've been reading the play so far. So look at how it's going to connect. It needs to be organized. You need to grab the reader's attention with a clear introduction. You need to have the body of the presentation clearly organized, and you need to have a conclusion that rounds it up. And then it needs to be needs to have things that add to the aesthetics, because in a media presentation where you're presenting things beyond just an essay, you're looking at video, you're looking at PowerPoint presentations, YouTube videos, Prezi presentations, whichever form of media you choose to use, it needs to include things beyond just text. So it needs to have photos or interesting graphics, something that makes it a presentation rather than just an essay. You need to make sure that you have a presentation that's free of grammar errors, and you need to cite your sources, in-text citation and reference page citation, works cited page citation. And in terms of length requirements, now this is something that I've been a little bit hesitant to put out there. What the length requirement is, that you have a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. That's the requirement, so it needs to have a full spectrum of ideas and presentation that is well-rounded. Now, what does that include? Well, I would say 8 to 10 slides for a PowerPoint presentation. Perhaps if you're making a video, 1 to 2 minutes. It needs to be thorough and complete, and that's really the point with the length requirements, that it is thorough, it is complete, it has an introduction, body, and conclusion. So it all works together in terms of length. So with that, I wanted to show you an example. So I worked up a presentation with Prezi, and this is a really cool website if you guys haven't checked it out. It is basically a way to create kind of like a PowerPoint presentation, but it looks a little different. They have, it's a free account that you can create with your email address. They have really neat graphics, and it, although is a little more difficult to maneuver at first, it's actually really kind of cool. So it starts off you can, in terms of creating a presentation, so this is my Prezi page, but you can create a new Prezi, and when you get here, sorry, it's taking a little time. So you can create a new Prezi once you've created a free page for yourself. And what it'll do, this is my presentation again where I'm waiting for this page to load, but you get to create all of the elements. So you create your titles and you create the information that's in there, but it actually has a way to choose different backgrounds. So you choose a template from what they have. So these are some new ones. I look at more because there's just a lot of different details, but you can choose any kind of background, and what it does is it sets up for you the look of your presentation. So like if you wanted, this one looks interesting, so I choose that, and then use template, and you can choose from any number of these. These are all free, and then you just input information once it's there. So here we have the entire presentation, but it has different places to add information, and over here are the slides. So if you start here with this slide, it would be the full spectrum, and then it zooms in on different elements, and you can see how it moves, and you can add text. You can come up here and insert videos and images. You can insert YouTube videos, which is great. You can do a lot of really neat things with this presentation. Now you can't add music unless it's directly on one slide. So if you added, some sort of music or voiceover or things like that, you have to add it directly to a slide rather than having it overlay the entire presentation. So keep that in mind if you choose to do Prezi. Now I wanted to look at this because it's just a different way, because of course we can create PowerPoint presentations for this, and this is completely fine. If you wanted to create a PowerPoint presentation, most computers have PowerPoint available, and it's pretty accessible if you know Microsoft Office, and there's a lot of different templates. You can insert videos, you can insert music. So PowerPoint is definitely one that you can check out as well. While that's loading though, I wanted to, didn't want to do that. I wanted to show you this presentation. So you can click on present and you can look at the whole presentation. And I'm going to upload this also to two of the classrooms so you can check out the presentation that way. So here's PowerPoint, but it's similar in terms of you can find backgrounds, you can add text. So whichever background you want to choose, you can do that. But PowerPoint's a pretty cool way to do a presentation, and it's easy and accessible. So I think that that's important as well when you are determining what kind of presentation you want to make. But you can include animations, you can include videos and text and all that kind of stuff in a PowerPoint presentation as well. So you're not completely limited. It's just when you try out these new ways of doing things, it might just be more interesting and engaging to you. So I'm just going to take you through this presentation and give you an idea of what I'm looking for. So this presentation has this particular slide, and then we have 7 more slides with content. So if I were to present this, I would say this is the road back to Africa, African spirituality in August Wilson's plays. So in August Wilson's plays, we have a role of spirituality. And in terms of how that works, so traces of African roots are embedded in August Wilson's plays, and these include references to African spirituality and mythology. In particular, we're going to look at Ogun and Ishu. So Wilson is described by John M. Hanna as he invokes the African American folk tradition, a world in which the devil and God both regularly interact with humans, and through which tensions and conflicts represented within the pairing come under constant negotiation. So we see that in Wilson's plays that there is a traditional element inserted, whether it is an element that is very specific, such as when we see in Act 1 where Troy Maxon's character talks directly to the devil and explains a situation where he interacts with the devil right in hand. Or, as we're going to look in this presentation, how Wilson actually evokes the images and ideas of different mythological characters in the characters in the plays. So, for instance, one character that we see invoked in the personalities in Wilson's plays is Ogun. And Ogun symbolizes the reality and ambiguity of violence in human experience, a violence that creates through acts of destruction, but which can also destroy what has created. So the rites of Ogun require the Yoruba to recognize the irony of cultural existence. Death is essential to life. And I have an image of a traditional look at Ishu, or at Ogun, being the reality of violence in human experience. Now, Ogun is represented in a Yoruba tradition here, but is throughout Africa a character, maybe by a different name, but there is definitely a tradition of Ogun throughout African culture. Ishu is another character that is traditionally a Nigerian character, but you can see Ishu from many different names throughout Africa. And Ishu is found in the characters of August Wilson in a connection to prophecy, guardianship of change, or crossroads. He's a master of style and has a chronic sexual appetite. So I think that Ishu is shown throughout Wilson's plays, but we definitely see a strong connection to Ishu with Troy Maxon's character. So let's look at both of these characters and how they connect to the play. So Maxon tackles Ishu's character by creating opposing forces between himself and the devil. So Ishu connects to that idea of opposition and opposing forces. So Maxon even says, "Death ain't nothing." And he boldly proclaims that in the play. And he continually is in opposition to himself and to death itself. So he's creating this opposition, this kind of fight between himself and the devil throughout the play. But also you see that where Maxon is trying to be has opposing forces in his life, when you see his strong love and connection to Rose, his wife, and then this kind of, where he wants to go off and see other women. So we have this opposition. But we also see that connection to Ogun. And we see Maxon showing fits of violence with his own son. And that is very strong in connection with the character of Ogun. So we have that opposing forces with Ishu, and we have the violence with Ogun. And ultimately, Wilson really does connect to spirituality in all of his plays. And we have one particular scholar talking about African history and spirituality. It says, religion to Africans of history was far more than ritual reflecting beliefs, but a reality reflected in their actual way of life. Religion from the earliest times became a dynamic force in the development of all major aspects of black civilization. So therefore, by being denied the right of their own religious practices during the course of slavery, African Americans were left with a deep void. So we see in Wilson's plays that he combats this with his writing by looking back to that heritage of and strength of the proverbial ancestors and finding the names of the gods of Africa. So we see that invocation of African spirituality in Wilson's work in order to fill the void that was there after centuries of being denied that culture. So here are my works cited citations. So this is the presentation that I created just as an example. Now when you go to do your presentation, I do want to see an introduction. I want to see a body that shares many details about your background. I want to see some sort of connection either to August Wilson himself or to the play that we are looking at. You also need to include visuals. You can see that I used images. And of course, the whole presentation, the way that it's presented in terms of dynamics and images is also important. I chose this slide presentation particularly because of the idea of moving back to Africa. So we go across the ocean to a new land. Okay, so we have that connection. So I want to see visuals and graphics and interesting details that are related to media. Now, if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. You can send me an email or give me a call. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing how your presentations come out. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Bye.